It was 9:30 p.m., lights out at Alcatraz. The guards made their rounds, they checked the cells, they saw three men sleeping in their beds, heads on pillows, blankets pulled up, but those weren't men. They were decoys made of soap, toilet paper, and real human hair stolen from the prison barber shop. The real men, they were already gone, crawling through holes they had carved with stolen spoons, climbing pipes no one knew they could reach, and heading toward the coldest, most dangerous water in America. This is the story of the only man who may have ever escaped Alcatraz, and the reason I say may have is because no one has seen them since. There is an island in the middle of San Francisco Bay. You can see it from the shore, from the Golden Gate Bridge, from the window of any downtown hotel. It sits there, gray, silent, surrounded by water so cold it can kill a man in 20 minutes. Alcatraz. They called it the Rock, and for nearly 30 years, it held the worst of the worst. Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, men so dangerous that no other prison in America would take them. The rules were simple. One man, one cell, no talking during meals, no privileges unless earned overuse of silence and obedience. And the message was even simpler. You don't leave. The water around the island runs between 50 and 55 degrees Fahrenheit. The Sertons are brutal. They don't push you toward the shore. They drag you out, past the bridge, into the open Pacific. 14 men tried to escape before 1962. Every single one was caught, shot, or found dead in the water. That was the point. Alcatraz wasn't built to rehabilitate. It was built to crush hope and take the most dangerous, most cunning, most defiant men in the country and show them that even their best wasn't good enough. And for almost 3 decades, it worked, until three men decided it wouldn't. Frank Morris arrived at Alcatraz in January 1960. He was 34 years old, orphaned at 11, in and out of institution his entire life, juvenile halls, foster homes, state prisons, federal prisons. He had escaped from multiple facilities before, Louisiana, Georgia, once from a federal prison in Atlanta. His IQ was tested at 133. Let's dust it for a moment. This was not a brute. This was not a man who punched his way through walls. Frank Morris was a strategist, a thinker, a problem solver who happened to live behind bars. When he arrived at Alcatraz, he didn't rage. He didn't fight. He watched. He studied the routines. He memorized the guard rotation. He tested the walls. He listened to building breath. Because all buildings breathe. They expand. They contract. They whisper their secrets to anyone patient enough to listen. And Morris was patient. Then there were Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, born in rural Georgia, raised picking cottons and swimming in Lake Okeechobee. Tough, resourceful, the kind of men who could build anything with their hands. They arrived at Alcatraz in 1961, transferred after multiple escape attempts from other prisons. The system had run out of patience with them, but putting them in Alcatraz in cells near Frank Morris was the biggest mistake the Bureau of Prison ever made. Because alone, each one of those men was dangerous. Together, they were something else entirely. It started in late 1961. Morris discovered something. The concrete around the ventilation grills in the cells, the ones at the back near the floor, was old, corroded by decades of salt air blowing in from the bay. He picked at it quietly with a metal spoon he had stolen from the mess hall. It crumbled, not quickly, not easily, but it crumbled. That was the beginning. Over the next 6 months, Morris, the Anglin brothers, and the fourth man, Allen West, developed a plan so detailed, so audacious, that it still stands criminal investigators to this day. Every night, after lights out, they would dig. They fashioned tools from whatever they could steal or find. Spoons bent into chisels, a drill made from the motor of stolen vacuum cleaner, sharpened pieces of metal hidden during the day inside their cells. The digging happened During music hour, every evening, the prison allowed an accordion player to practice. The sound echoed through the cell block, and behind that sound, the scraping, the chip, the slow, patient destruction of concrete. They covered the halls with fake grills made of cardboard, painted to match the wall. From even feet away, you couldn't tell the difference. From there, they needed to get to the roof. They found an unguarded ventilation shaft on top of the cell block, but reaching it meant climbing 30 feet of plumbing in the dark, in silence, without being seen. So they practiced night after night. They climbed the pipes. They tested the shaft. They mapped every inch of their escape route until they could do it blind. And then there were the decoys. This was the detail that changed everything. If the guards did a bed check and saw an empty bunks, the alarm would sound immediately. Searchlights, sirens, boats in the water within minutes. So they built fake heads. Soap, concrete dust, toilet paper, flesh-tone paint stolen from the prison art supplies, and real human hair carefully collected from the floor of the barber shop. Over weeks, each head was placed on pillow under blanket in the dim light of a nighttime cell check. They looked real, disturbingly real. The last piece of the plan was the most ambitious. They needed to cross the bay. Swimming was suicide. The cold would shut their bodies down long before they reached land, so they built a raft using over 50 stolen raincoats, collected one by one, hidden in the utility corridor above the cells, glued and stitched together into a 6 by 14-foot inflatable vessel. They used the same raincoat material to make life preserver. They fashioned pedals from scrap wood. An engineer couldn't have designed it better. And remember, they built all of this in the dark, in stolen minutes, while an entire prison full of guards believed they were sleeping. June 11, 1962. Light out came at 9:30 p.m. Like every other night, the cell block went quiet. The guards began their rounds. Behind cell B152, Frank Morris pulled the fake rail from his wall for the last time. He squeezed through the hall into the corridor. Clarence Anglin did the same from his cell. Then Jones, Aaron West, the fourth man, was not so lucky. His hole wasn't wide enough. The cardboard he had used to disguise it had been sealed too tightly. He couldn't get through. He panicked. He scraped. He clawed the concrete. But time wasn't something he had. The other three couldn't wait. They had a window measured in minutes, not hours. They left him behind. In the corridor, the three men climbed 30 feet of pipes in total darkness. The metal was slick. The air was damp and stale. One slip, one dropped tool, one loud breath, and it was over. There is the ventilation shafts in the top of the cell block. They had already loosened the bolts weeks earlier, replacing them with fakes that could be removed by hand. The shaft led to the roof, and then open air. For the first time in years, Frank Morris felt the wind, cold, heavy with salt, coming off the Pacific in gusts that cut through their prison clothes. They crossed the rooftop, climbed down a bakery smokestack on the north side of the building, hit the ground near the shoreline. They inflated the raft, and they pushed off into the black water of San Francisco Bay. 7:18 a.m. June 12, 1962. A guard named Bill Long approached Frank Morris's cell for the morning count. "Morris, on your feet." No response. He looked closer. The shape in the bed wasn't moving, wasn't breathing. He reached through the bars and touched the head on the pillow. It was cold. It was hard. It was made of soap. Within minutes, the entire prison was locked down. Guards swarmed the cell block. The holes were discovered. The utility corridor, the roof shaft. Three men were gone. The FBI launched one of the largest manhunts in American history. They searched the bay, the shoreline, the nearby Angle Island, every dock, every boat, every road leaving San Francisco. They found pieces of the raft on Angle Island. They found a paddle, a wallet warped in plastic, belonging to one of the Anglin brothers, personal items sealed against the water, but they never found a body, not one. The FBI officially concluded that the three men drowned in the bay. Case closed. Bodies lost in the curtains and the cold, but the conclusion has never sat well with anyone. Here is why. First, the Anglin brothers grew up swimming, not pool swimming, open water. Lake Okeechobee. They swam in the condition most adults would refuse. Their bodies were adapt to cold water in ways average persons were not. Second, The raft was designed intelligently. Materials were waterproof. Construction was sound. When the Mythbuster television show recreated the raft in 2003 using the same materials and methods, they successfully crossed the bay. Third, and this is the detail that enhanced investigators. The personal belongings found on Angle Island were dry inside their plastic warping. If the raft had capsized, if the men had drowned, those items would have been waterlogged. They were dry. That means someone landed, opened the bag, and left. Then there are the letters. In 2013, a letter reportedly written by John Anglin was sent to the FBI's San Francisco field office. It read in part, "My name is John Anglin. I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962 with my brother Clarence and Frank Morris. I'm 83 years old and in bad shape. I have cancer." The letter asks for a deal, medical care in exchange for turning himself in. The FBI tested the letter. They analyzed the handwriting. The results were inconclusive. Not fake, not confirmed, inconclusive. There were also reports from the Anglin family, a mother who received flowers every year on Mother's Day from a known sender until the day she died. Tall and familiar man spotted at family funeral in the 1970s. A photograph allegedly taken in Brazil in 1975 showing two men who bear striking resemblance to the Anglin brothers. A photograph was analyzed by the U.S. Marshals Service. They didn't dismiss it. They said it was of interest. And the case, it was never technically closed. The U.S. Marshals kept it open, continuing to investigate. Frank Morris would be over 100 years old now, and the Anglin brothers roughly the same. If they survived that night, if they made it to the shore, dried off and disappeared into the world, they lived an entire second life that no one knows about. Alcatraz closed less than a year after the escape. March 1963, the official reason was cost. The salt air was destroying the building. Maintenance was too expensive. Operating an island was impractical. But there is another reason no one puts in the official reports. The escape broke something. It broke the myth. The Alcatraz was supposed to be the end of the line, the place where Hall went to die. And three men with spoons, raincoats, and fake heads made of soap proved it was all a story. The most secured prison in America, and they walked out. Here is what I think about something. Frank Morris sat in that cell for 2 years before the escape. He ate the same meal. He followed the same schedule. He stared at the same walls. But behind his eyes, something was happening. He was mapping, planning, calculating every variable, every risk, every second of the route, while the guard saw a complained prisoner. Morris was building an entire operation in his mind, and he told no one, not fully. Each man knew only what he needed to know, compartmentalized, like an intelligence operation. The patience required, the discipline, the ability to scrape concrete for 6 months, one spoonful at a time, knowing that a single mistake meant a solitary confinement. Or worse, that's not desperation, that's architecture. Today, Alcatraz is a museum. Over 1 million terrorists visit every year. They walk through the cell block. They stand in Frank Morris's cell. They look at the holes. The fake heads are on display behind glass. People take photographs and smile. But if you go at the right time, late afternoon, when the fog is rolling in, and most of the terrorists have left, you can stand on the north shore of the island and look out at the water. It's still cold, it's still dark, the curtains still run hard toward the open ocean, and you can ask yourself the question that the FBI has been asking for over 60 years. On the night of June 11, 1962, 3 men pushed a rubber raft into this water and disappeared. Did the bait take them, or did it let them go?